I, male, 57, and my wife Sandra, female, 56, never had any children together. Sandra has a daughter, Holly, female, 33, from her previous relationship. I entered Holly's life when she was 6, and she considers me to be basically her father. Her bio dad is absent, and we don't even know where he is right now. Her dad's absenteeism plus the early age at which I entered her life had created a really strong bond between us. I even walked her down the aisle when she married her fiance, Josh. But their marriage became quite strained and early on due to their different perspectives on careers. Holly is very ambitious and has the brains to back it up. She works in software development and is considered an expert in her field. She loves her career and would never want to give it up. However, Josh has a really weird mindset about working, which came out of the woodwork after their child was born. He was active in favor of Holly working when they didn't have a kid, especially considering that her job netted about 4 times of the income he brought in. They enjoyed trips out together, spent on comforts, and even paid off their first house before Holly turned 30. But when Bryant, male 6, was born, Josh started to act really finicky about the whole who'll take care of the baby question. From the story, I know they had decided on raising their child while both of them continued to work and would pay for a nanny or a helper of some kind. But Josh started to change his mind. He wanted Holly to quit her job and become a permanent stay-at-home mom. She obviously declined as it was unfair to her, and unfortunately, that was when their marriage came apart. When Brian was 2, his parents separated and Holly got full custody. The thing was, even though Josh wanted a parent to stay home and raise their kids since it was natural, he was terrible at parenting and woefully unprepared. Holly, despite not making it her priority, was still able to do right by her kids. We supported her through this tough time, and it was rough on everyone, but at the end of the day, it felt like it was for the best. Josh got his wires crossed when it came to parenting. Due to how messy the divorce was, Holly lost the house in the divorce and for the next 2 years lived in an apartment in New York City with Brian and did her best to juggle work and parenting. She did have a nanny, but that wasn't helping out in the long term. She also started seeing someone who also had a kid from their previous relationship. Brian was too young to understand, but it was clear that Holly was slowly getting integrated into this new guy's family and losing touch with her own son. Mark, her new boyfriend, was also ambitious and career-oriented like her, and both of them were planning on moving in together and starting a business. His daughter, Cindy, female 10, was a bit older than Brian and could have helped out with raising him a little. However, Holly also felt like bringing Brian along and raising 2 kids while working at the level they were would be unsustainable. So she reached out to her mom and asked if we could take care of Brian for the foreseeable future. Sandra and I reeled at this idea. I mean, why did Brian deserve to be abandoned? We asked her to reconsider, but Holly was adamant that she was making the right choice. She said, "If you guys can't work it out, I'll ask Josh to take Brian. He knows him, and I'm sure he'll learn to take care of him eventually. I don't mind signing over my custody rights or maybe agreeing to split custody." When I said that idea was completely insane, she hurtfully told me that I'm not her dad, and I just shut down the confrontation then and there. Giving Brian to Josh was infinitely worse than having Brian with us because Josh had basically gone to shit after the divorce. We ran into him once at a local bar and he was not doing well, partying, drinking, and deep in debt. I would not allow my grandson to live in such an environment. Despite our misgivings, we allowed Holly to leave her son with us and go focus on her business. It's been years since then, and Brian has grown into an amazing little man. Holly comes by and visits maybe once every 2 months, and I can tell that the kid finds it tough to deal with his mom being gone for so long. Despite that, Holly still keeps making excuses about work and the amount she has on her plate, despite Mark's daughter living in their house. Because of the dynamic that she has created and the obvious hurt it's causing my grandson, I don't speak that much with Holly, while Sandra keeps a little more in touch with her. Recently, we got an invite from Holly to a party in the Hamptons where she was buying a house. Sandra gave me some info, and apparently Mark and she had sold their business for millions and were now looking at moving to a bigger place and starting their next venture. Sandra was proud of this, and even I found it impressive, but I have to know, where does Brian fit into all this? He's just turned 6, and I feel like he's going to grow up and resent his mother unless she makes him a part of this life that she's building. I made this clear to Sandra and also said that I wouldn't go to the party unless she tells me what she was planning to do with Brian. Because guess what? She asked us to drop Brian off at a babysitter instead of bringing him with us to meet her. And that just rubbed me the wrong way. Sandra feels like I should have at least come to the party, as it's clear Holly wants both of us there. But I won't move an inch unless I get a response from her about her child. AITA? Update 1. So Holly knows the reason why I'm not going, and she called me personally to talk about it. She opened up about how she always felt trapped in the relationship with Josh and was forced into having a kid by his constant needling. Sandra knew about this already, but had kept it from me, as it was Holly's place to tell me. On the call, Holly also told me that she suffered from PPD, and that severely hampered the time she had with Brian in the first year of his life. When I told her that I empathized with her, but felt like her kid deserved a chance to be loved by her, she didn't know how to respond. I said, "Listen, I know it was hard, but he's still your blood. Do you really think you'll be able to explain to him why you've abandoned him like this? Do you really not love him?" And that made her cry. It felt bad to make, basically, my daughter cry, but I still couldn't accept her understanding of this situation. I told her that I wasn't ready to accept that my grandson will not know my daughter, and even if she couldn't accept him into the family, it felt unfair that Mark and his daughter were so close to her. Holly explained why that was the case by saying she always thinks back to her time with Josh and the forced nature of it all when she thinks of her son. She knows this is unfair to him, but it's a big mental block she really can't get past. After the call, I feel like nothing has changed, and the party is next week. Sandra said that she needs to go to support her daughter. This party has created a lot of tension between us, and she's been quite icy with me. I just don't understand how she can love Brian and be okay with this. Update 2. I've been reading a lot of your comments, and I want to thank the people who've told me about motherhood and how complex it can be. I still feel like Brian deserves to be in the care of his mom, and I think that as he grows older, he is going to resent his mother for basically having no reason to leave him with us. And that irks me. But I also realize that I can't force my stepdaughter to take back my grandson, so the best thing I could honestly do is give him an amazing childhood. Sandra and I are old, but we've been holding our own when it comes to raising this little fella. And Holly has often sent us funds to make sure that Brian gets everything he needs. I think I'll call Holly and ask her if Brian can come with me to the housewarming. I am willing to go to the party and celebrate her success, but I also need to speak with her in person about what I feel about this issue. She said that she's okay with that and hopes that I can understand her point of view and truly why she can't parent Brian right now. Update 3. So I came back from the party yesterday, and a lot of things about Mark and Holly's dynamic have been shown to me. First off, Mark does most of the parenting for his kid, and the girl mostly treats Holly like a roommate who has to be respected more than anything else. Secondly, I got to look at Holly's priorities and how she works day to day. The girl is almost like a machine. Even though they've sold their business, she's on call 24/7 with contacts and people she is mentoring. And it takes up a huge chunk of her day. It is impressive and she's leaving an impact on the world, but it almost seems like she's going to wear herself out. Mark and I also got to know each other, and he's a nice guy. He seems to take up the role of the caretaker in the house, and he even became quite close to Brian. They got along well, and he revealed to me that he wouldn't mind having Brian be a part of his family. But at the end of the day, he wants Holly to be okay with it too. The party was lovely, and as we were cleaning up together, I spoke to Holly about my feelings and everything I've expressed in the last few updates, and she understands where I'm coming from as well. However, she does not think, even now, that she could form any real bond with Brian. After a lot of back and forth, we agreed to disagree, and Sandra and I will continue to raise Brian. However, Holly has promised to be more active in his life, to visit more, and at least to try to form a connection with him. Brian is still too young to be drastically harmed by this, and he loves staying with us, but to me, it's still a little alien. However, I know Holly would never be cruel on purpose, and I understand where she is coming from. It's for the best. NTA, and I feel like Holly is avoiding a major responsibility in her life. I don't think she's a bad person, but she's making a bad choice. She's going to realize later that a human relationship is worth more than the priorities she has right now. NAH, I think Holly is probably holding back on telling you how bad her relationship was with Josh and how psychologically damaging it was for her. So she needs to process everything at her own pace, and I think her threatening to give Brian to Josh means that she has made some connection between them implicitly. She needs help, and Brian needs to grow up in a stable home with two loving parental figures. Next story. I'm 26, female. My wife, 25, female, and I have been together 10 years. I've seen in post comments, this is a deal breaker or leave them. And I'd like to preemptively ask for people to not say this. In any case, it's a minor argument. I'd had a few friends around. One of my friends was in his first ever committed relationship. We're all super happy for him. He mentioned that he's having problems sharing a bed with her. She kicks. This led to a few of my friends laughing and sharing a few stories of their own. I did join in and said that sometimes sleeping next to my wife was like sleeping next to an old lady, but I didn't really go much into details other than mentioning she drools. Not a problem. In reality, it's that she's diabetic, type 1, and whilst normally in range, when her sugars are high, she's up and down every 5 minutes for the loo. This is personal. Didn't say it to my friends. They don't need to know. It's just gotten worse since we had a baby because now bathroom and baby keeps me awake. I suppose she overheard because she got super pouty, said she didn't appreciate the joke, and that she'd sleep elsewhere since I didn't want to share with Grandpa. I may have laughed at that. Wrong thing to do. I apologized and mentioned that my friends were sharing stories, and honestly, what I said wasn't overly embarrassing. She said, I don't care. I'm not their partner. I apologized again. She said she'd sleep elsewhere, but I'm sleeping on the sofa, so she doesn't have to. Ironically enough, though, she's still proving my point as the baby has yet to cry. But she's up and down for the loo, like an old person. I may have backtracked on my apologies by saying good night, Grandpa, but I had apologized twice by then. She's made a little jabs about our relationship jokingly to her sister, and I've never said a word because it's a joke. I honestly don't think I'm this much of an AH in this situation. AITA? Yes, because a diabetic pregnant woman doesn't want to be referred to as an old woman by her partner's friends. You do understand that pregnant women are already in a tough situation and aren't going to be receptive to mocking by their partners who aren't going through the body changes that they are, right? Wow. Seriously, YTA. So let me get this straight. You made a comment to your friends about sleeping next to an old lady, but couldn't explain the reason for the comment because it's too personal? By your own admission. Yeah, dude, YTA. Your reasoning for this was because she struggles with incontinence due to her having a baby and frequent urination due to a medical condition. Oh, and drooling. It's fair she doesn't want this broadcasted and is likely insecure, sensitive about these facts. Best response in this scenario is, yeah, it takes getting used to sharing a bed. Wife and I still go through waves of struggle not having our own space. Honestly, may I suggest separate bedrooms? It's more common than most people think and could solve some issues in your marriage. Next story. I, 45, male, have a cousin, 32, female, who I'm not close to. In fact, in the past 5 years, we texted each other once. We also come from a very small family. She and I are the last kids. Besides us, there's only 4 other people left. I'm not close to our grandfather either. I moved away when I was 20 and have seen him twice in that time and haven't seen him at all since our grandmother passed. Several years ago, my cousin married someone of a different race and had kids. I don't have a problem with any of this, and to be honest, I don't even think about her or her family, so you can say I'm indifferent to the entire thing. However, our grandfather is super racist. He thinks it's an abomination, so he cut her and her family completely out of his will. He even cut out her mother, his daughter, because she supported the marriage. He told them what he was doing and told them several other things I can't put here. They haven't spoken to each other since the day. Recently, he had a health scare and had to stay in the hospital for a few weeks. My mom, his other daughter, took care of him and because of his advanced age is working with his attorney to put things in order. This is when the inheritance issue resurfaced because he really did disinherit my aunt, cousin, and that entire family. This means the only people left in his will are me, my mom, and 2 others. My cousin, aunt, and their family have been trying to rally us to stand against our grandfather to either change his will or for us to denounce his inheritance because it's the right thing to do. The thing is, I don't want to because I need the money. I don't have to agree with his world views, but I have bills to pay, and with the predicted economy downturn, his money will be a safety net if I lose my job. I told my cousin all of this, and she thinks I'm a racist AH. I tried telling her I'm not and I just care about the money. She said if that's the case, I should stand with her to force him to change his will. I don't think it'll work out like she has it in her head. By the way, we're not talking about millions, and I'm not going to be able to play tennis with Elon Musk at the country club. It'll just be a nice safety net for several years if I lose my job and can't find a new one. AITA for choosing my inheritance? First, your grandfather is clearly a huge a-hole. You are a bit of an a-hole for just telling your cousin, "Sorry, but I need the money." The right thing to do is for all involved to sit down and commit to cousin and family that you will share the money as it would have been had they not been disinherited. Put it in writing. But for God's sake, don't tell Grandpa. Trying to force Grandpa to change his will ain't gonna work. It'll just get the whole pile donated to some racist organization instead. Take the money, but do right by your cousin and make sure they all know it. Your cousin can't force your grandfather to change his will, neither can you. Neither can your mother. Nobody can. And do not plan your future based upon an inheritance. You don't know what will happen to your grandfather's estate between now and when he passes. He may end up leaving a fortune or leaving a mountain of debt. Your grandfather is a racist a-hole and you're a bit of one for enabling him. However, at his advanced age, the likelihood that you would be able to change his opinion is negligible. But allowing his behavior just for money is really unsettling, OP. NTA, forget about the racism angle and political correctness and all that. Do not let yourself get dragged into somebody else's shit. Do not make sacrifices for causes you don't believe in because somebody wants to take your money and turn it into their money. You don't know what happened here. Maybe, or even probably, your cousin had this talk with Gramps before she got married, and he told her he would cut her out if she did. She went ahead and married the love of her life, and good for her. That's the proper life decision. But now she wants you either give her half of your inheritance or forfeit it all because she's not happy about being cut out. None of you knows what the will is going to say. Maybe she's out. Maybe she's in. Maybe he's leaving it all to the KKK. Just go on living your life. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.